If you think you'd want to know what's under your house, you're wrong. I learned that too late, and now I can't unlearn it. Every creak in the floorboards, every groan of the pipes, every shadow that stretches too far across the room, it all feels different now. Like the house itself is breathing, holding a secret that I never should have uncovered. And if you've ever thought about poking around in the places you're not supposed to, let this be your warning. Some doors are shut for a reason. When we first moved in, it was just a normal house. Too normal, actually. Beige walls, slightly crooked cabinets, the faint smell of dust and old wood. Harmless. Safe. But houses lie. They smile with their fresh coats of paint and hide their scars under carpet. Ours had a scar, and I found it by accident. It wasn't dramatic. No glowing red light seeping through the cracks, no ominous hum, just a hollow sound when I tapped the basement floor one night, and the soft click of something not nailed down the way it should have been. That's all it took. One knock, one echo where there shouldn't have been one. I remember crouching down, fingertips tracing the seam that wasn't supposed to exist, the outline of a trapdoor. I should have walked away. I should have told myself it was just bad carpentry or my imagination. But curiosity is cruel. It convinces you that you're in control. I wasn't in control. Not then, not now. There were signs someone had been down there before us. Scuff marks on the wood, a faint smell that didn't belong to the house, a mix of sweat, mildew, and something else I couldn't place. I didn't say anything to my family right away. I told myself I was protecting them, but really, I think I just didn't want to hear the truth out loud. Because deep down, I already knew. No one digs a bunker beneath a house unless they're hiding something. Or worse, unless they're planning to come back. And that's where this story really begins. When we first got the keys, the house looked almost too perfect. A little outdated, sure, the kind of place where floral wallpaper curled at the corners and the kitchen tiles still had faint cigarette burns from some long-gone owner, but it was ours. The kind of place you could imagine holiday dinners, late-night movie marathons, maybe even a future that didn't feel so fragile. My mom joked it was a fixer-upper with character. My dad muttered something about the mortgage bleeding him dry, but he was smiling when he said it. The first week was chaos, in the way moving always is. Boxes stacked like cardboard towers, arguments about where the couch should go, pizza boxes piling up faster than we could throw them out. It was loud, messy, alive. The house groaned under the weight of us settling in, like it wasn't sure if it wanted new tenants just yet. There were small things at first, little quirks we brushed off. A faint, sour smell that drifted up from the basement no matter how many times we scrubbed and sprayed. Dad blamed it on old pipes. A strange scratching noise behind the walls that kept me awake one night. Mice, Mom said, though she never set out traps. Even the light seemed to flicker when we laughed too loud, as if the house was listening and didn't appreciate the noise. We told ourselves it was normal. All old houses come with baggage, right? And besides, it was easier to laugh about it than to admit we felt watched. I remember one night specifically, our second or third night, when we sat in the living room surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. My sister swore she heard someone walking upstairs, even though we were all accounted for. My dad rolled his eyes, climbed the stairs two at a time, and came back down shrugging. Nothing up there but dust. We laughed, but it was the kind of laughter that fills empty space, not the kind that comes from actual humor. Still, there were good moments. Nights where the air smelled like fresh paint instead of mildew. Days where sunlight spilled through the windows and made everything look warmer than it really was. For a while, it was easy to believe we were just adjusting, that the house was only creaking under the weight of its own history. But things didn't stay harmless. They never do. Because soon, it wasn't just strange smells or flickering lights, it was things vanishing. Food missing from the fridge, small items we swore we left in one place only to find them somewhere else entirely.
And with every little incident, that sense of safety we tried to build started to crack, just enough for the shadows to slip through.
It started small, the kind of things you shrug off until you can't anymore. A half-eaten sandwich missing from the fridge, my phone charger vanishing from the kitchen counter, only to show up in the laundry room 3 days later. At first, we blamed each other. Seriously, who keeps drinking the orange juice straight from the carton? My sister snapped one morning, holding it up like evidence in a trial. Dad didn't even look up from the newspaper. Not me. Gross, Mom muttered, wrinkling her nose. If it's you, just admit it. It's not me, I said, though even as I said it, I wondered. Had I grabbed a drink late at night and forgotten? Sleepwalking wasn't exactly in my medical history, but it made more sense than, well, anything else. We laughed it off then, if only we knew what was really happening. The noises came next, soft scratching in the walls, especially at night. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, telling myself it was just mice, even though the sound was too deliberate, too slow, like fingernails dragging along the wood. I mentioned it at breakfast, but no one seemed alarmed. Old houses make noises, Dad said, dunking his toast into his coffee like that settled it. Yeah, ghosts of the plumbing, my sister added with a smirk. I tried to laugh, but my throat felt tight. By the second week, the arguments had grown sharper. Missing leftovers sparked full-blown accusations. Dad accused me of sneaking food in the night. Mom accused him right back. We were unraveling over scraps, and the house seemed to enjoy it, settling deeper into its groans each time we fought. Then came the day Mom sent me down to the basement to clear space for storage. The air was damp and stale, like wet stone. Cobwebs clung to the corners, and the light bulb above swung weakly, casting more shadows than illumination. I was dragging boxes across the floor when I noticed it, a hollow thump under my feet. Not the solid sound of concrete, but something with give. I froze, pressing my ear to the floorboards. For a second, I swore I heard it again, the faintest scratch, right beneath me. That was when I saw the outline, a seam in the wood, faint but undeniable. A hatch, one that none of us had ever noticed before. The seam in the basement floor wasn't much to look at, just a thin line where the dust collected differently, almost invisible unless you were standing right on top of it. I crouched down, ran my fingers along the edge, and felt the subtle give of wood that didn't quite belong. My heart was pounding so loudly I swore it would echo through the concrete walls. When I called everyone down to see, the reactions were immediate. Dad squinted at it, knelt beside me, and tapped twice. The hollow sound rang out clear as a bell. "Trapdoor," he muttered, almost impressed. Mom crossed her arms. "Probably just access to pipes or wiring, leave it." My sister grinned, crouching beside me. "Or it's treasure, like a chest full of gold doubloons. We're about to be rich." I shook my head. No one hides treasure under the laundry detergent. Her grin faltered. Then what is it? That was the question gnawing at all of us. What was sealed beneath our feet? We argued for what felt like hours. Mom insisted it was dangerous, that we should call the landlord or at least have someone inspect it. Dad said it was our house now and he wasn't paying anyone a dime to tell him how his basement worked. My sister demanded we open it immediately. What's the worst that could happen? While I sat there torn between dread and curiosity, because I couldn't shake the details. The missing food, the noises at night, the smell of mildew that no amount of cleaning ever erased. "What if someone's down there?" I asked quietly. The basement seemed to grow colder after I said it. Dad forced a laugh. "Don't be ridiculous. Nobody's living under our house." But even he didn't sound convinced. We stood in silence, staring at that seam in the wood like it might open on its own. The bulb above us flickered once, then twice, shadows twitching across the floor. It felt like the house itself was holding its breath. Finally, Dad straightened up and said the words that sealed it. "We'll open it tomorrow, together." And even though every instinct in me screamed not to, we all agreed. We had to know. The next evening, after hours of nervous procrastination, we finally pried the trapdoor open. The wood groaned like it hadn't been disturbed in decades, and the smell that rushed out was thick and sour. Earth,
mildew and something sharper that clung to the back of my throat. I remember thinking this wasn't just a hole in the floor. It was a wound. A narrow set of wooden steps led down into darkness. The beam of Dad's flashlight shook slightly as he held it over the opening. Dust swirled in the air like disturbed ash, glittering for a moment before vanishing into the black. "You first," my sister said, forcing a laugh as she shoved me gently toward the hole. I didn't argue. Some part of me knew that if I didn't go down, I'd never be able to sleep again. So I set my foot on the first step, wincing at the creak, and began the descent. The air grew heavier with each step, pressing against my chest. The walls were rough concrete, damp to the touch, lined with veins of dark mold. My fingers brushed against something hanging. A rope. No, not rope. A wire. Frayed and brittle. When I reached the bottom, the beam of light revealed a room that was far too large to exist under a house like ours. It stretched longer than the foundation should have allowed, like the basement had swallowed up more than its share of the earth. And it wasn't empty. There were candles, melted down to nubs, their wax pooled like frozen tears. Empty food wrappers crumpled in corners, soda cans stacked in uneven towers. A mattress sat in the far corner, stained and sagging, covered in a blanket that looked like it had once been blue. Beside it, a pile of notebooks leaned against the wall, pages sticking out like tongues. "Jesus Christ," Dad muttered. "Someone's been living here. Been? Or still?" Because it didn't look abandoned. Whoever stayed here hadn't left years ago. They'd left recently, maybe hours ago. The wrappers weren't dusty. The candle wax was soft at the edges. My sister picked up one of the notebooks, flipping it open. Her face drained of color. It's us," she said. I grabbed it from her hands. Inside were sketches of our house, crude drawings of the kitchen, the living room, even the bedrooms. Ours. Notes scribbled in the margins. They eat dinner at 7, lights out around midnight. One page showed the outline of our basement, a shaky arrow pointing upward. The flashlight beam stuttered across the room, catching on something metallic. A set of keys hanging from a nail, each one labeled in black marker. Front door, back door, garage. I felt sick. "Whoever lived here left in a hurry," I whispered. Then I swallowed hard. Or maybe they're still here. As if on cue, the trapdoor above us slammed shut, and footsteps followed.
The sound of the trapdoor slamming still rang in my ears when Dad shoved his shoulder against the steps, forcing it open just enough to prove we weren't trapped. "Probably the wind," he muttered, but no one believed him. The air felt wrong, charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm. We turned back to the room, hoping, foolishly, that searching would make it less terrifying. My sister picked up another notebook, this one thicker, the cover soft from years of handling. The handwriting inside was jagged, frantic. Notes about us, pages and pages. "They know what time we leave for work," she whispered. "What time we get back, even what nights Mom falls asleep on the couch." Mom pressed her hands to her mouth. "That's impossible. Who would—" Then I saw the photos, taped to the far wall, in a grid, like some grotesque gallery. Shots of us unloading boxes from the moving truck, eating dinner through the kitchen window. My sister brushing her teeth, blinds half shut. They weren't blurry, distant shots either. Whoever took them had been close. Too close. Dad ripped them down, crumpling the prints in his fist. "We're calling the police. Right now." "Wait." I bent to pick up a scrap of paper that had fallen from one of the journals. The ink bled across the page, but I could still make out the words. "Rules must be followed. Watchers always watching. Never let them upstairs."
I read it aloud before I realized what I was doing. The words seemed to thicken the air. My skin crawled. Rules? Watchers? My sister repeated, voice shaking. What does that even mean? It means some lunatic was camping out under our house, and now they're gone, so let's go. But what if they're not gone? I asked. What if they're just hiding? We all froze then, the silence stretching too long. That's when we heard it. Soft, deliberate, coming from deeper in the bunker. A shuffle. The scrape of something against concrete. Not the house settling, not mice. Someone else was down there with us.
The shuffle grew louder, no longer distant, but deliberate, footsteps dragging against concrete. Dad swung the flashlight toward the sound, the beam tutting through dust and shadow. That's when we saw them. A figure, standing just beyond the edge of the light, too still, like they'd been waiting. "Hello?" Dad's voice cracked on the word, thin with bravado. "This is private property. You need to leave." The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, watching. I wish I could tell you their face. I wish I could describe it in a way that made sense, but I can't. Even thinking about it now makes my stomach knot. It wasn't that the features were monstrous. It was the opposite. Too ordinary, too familiar. Like someone you pass on the street and forget instantly, and yet something about them was wrong. A flaw in the reflection, a smudge on the glass of reality. Mom grabbed my arm. "We're going upstairs, now." But the figure finally moved, one step forward. Slow, deliberate. "Stay back," Dad warned, but his voice was hollow. Then the light caught something in their hand. A knife. No, longer, sharper, something handmade, jagged metal strapped to wood. My sister gasped, clapping a hand over her mouth. The figure tilted their head just slightly, like they were curious or amused. "Run," I whispered. We bolted. The notebooks, the photos, the evidence, we left it all behind. The only thing that mattered was the steps, the trapdoor, the thin slice of light above. The figure's footsteps followed, scraping closer, faster. I could hear their breath now, ragged and wet, too close to be real. Dad shoved us forward, barking at us to move, his own panic breaking through. My sister tripped on the last step, and I hauled her up with everything I had. The flashlight clattered to the floor, beams spinning wildly, catching glimpses of the figure behind us, just enough to prove they were real, and just enough to make me wish they weren't. We burst through the trapdoor, slamming it shut with a force that rattled the whole basement. Dad threw his weight against it, face pale and shining with sweat. For a moment there was only silence. Then 3 slow knocks from beneath, echoing through the wood. Knocks that promised we hadn't escaped at all. We ran upstairs, every light in the house blazing, but the sound followed us, soft, patient footsteps, pacing the basement like a predator, waiting for its prey to come back down.
We locked the trapdoor. It didn't matter. That night, the house felt different, like it was holding its breath, waiting. Every bulb we switched on seemed too dim, every shadow too heavy. We huddled in the living room, telling ourselves we were safe upstairs, that wood and locks would keep the darkness where it belonged. But safety is just a word you repeat until it loses all meaning. By morning, the illusion was gone. The back door stood wide open, though we knew we'd locked it. A kitchen chair had been dragged across the floor, its legs leaving fresh scratches on the tiles. My toothbrush was missing from the bathroom. Small things, stupid things, until you remembered the notebooks, until you remembered the photos. "They have keys," my sister whispered. Her face was pale, eyes bloodshot from crying. "They don't need to break in." Dad searched the house twice, checked every closet, every corner. Nothing. But he couldn't explain the muddy footprints leading from the back door to the stairs, footprints that stopped at the locked trapdoor, as if someone had walked out,
then gone right back down. We tried to carry on, pretending normal life still existed, cooking, cleaning, going to work, but the house wouldn't let us. Doors we locked were open minutes later. Lights flickered whenever we laughed, as though joy itself was offensive. Sometimes at night, I'd wake to the sound of breathing in the hallway, slow and steady, until it faded into silence when I dared to listen too closely. It wasn't just a bunker anymore. It was everywhere. And before I go further, before I tell you what happened next, I need you to understand this isn't just about us. This is about anyone who's ever heard noises under their floorboards and ignored them. Anyone who's ever felt watched inside their own home.
If you've ever heard scratching under your floorboards, don't check. Don't make our mistake. I know how stories like this sound, paranoid rambling, the kind of thing you laugh at in the daylight and forget about by dinner. But I'm telling you, this isn't just about my family. We didn't stumble onto some one-off freak who chose our house by chance. We uncovered something bigger. After that night, I started digging. Not in the bunker, I couldn't bring myself to go back down there, but online, in forums, late-night threads, anywhere people whispered about the things they couldn't explain. And I found them. Posts from people in other towns, other countries even. Families who discovered trapdoors, crawl spaces, sealed cellars they didn't know existed. Some described the same stench, the same notebooks, the same rules. Most of those posts ended abruptly. No follow-ups, just silence. Tell me that's a coincidence. I can't shake the thought that we were allowed to find it, that maybe whoever or whatever lives in those places wanted us to, wanted me to, like a spider letting you notice the web only after you're tangled in it. You might be thinking, why not move? Why not burn the place down? Believe me, we thought about it. But moving doesn't erase the photographs. It doesn't erase the footprints in the hallway at 3 a.m. Wherever the watchers are, they already know us. We're marked. And maybe you are too. So I'm begging you, if your house creaks a little too often, if food disappears when no one's around, if you smell earth where there shouldn't be earth, don't go looking. Curiosity is how they find you. We opened the door. We let it in, and I don't think it ever really left. Because lately, the noises have started again. It always starts the same way. A soft scrape in the night. Just faint enough to convince yourself you imagined it. I tried to ignore it at first, bury my head under the pillow, tell myself it was just the house settling. But then came the second scrape. Louder. Closer. And last night, I heard breathing again. Not mine, not anyone's in my family. It was steady, slow, and patient, coming from just outside my bedroom door. When I worked up the courage to open it, nothing. The hallway was empty. But the smell lingered, that same sour mix of earth and sweat that I'll never forget. We sealed the trap door. We even nailed it shut. But it doesn't matter, does it? Doors don't mean much to something that's already inside. I've started noticing small things again. Items moved, food missing, lights flickering when I'm alone. My sister swears she saw someone's shadow cross the kitchen while she was in the living room. Dad doesn't sleep anymore, just paces with the TV on mute. Mom tries to pretend everything's fine, but I've caught her crying in the bathroom with the fan running to cover the sound. The worst part? The photographs are back. Not the ones we found in the bunker. New ones, slipped under the front door at night. I woke up yesterday to a picture of me, asleep in my bed, mouth half open, completely vulnerable. Whoever took it was standing inches away. So now, I don't know if there was ever just one of them.
Maybe the bunker was only one nest, one hiding place in a network we'll never map. Maybe every street has one, every neighborhood. Maybe yours. I'll leave you with this. Listen closely tonight. If you hear scratching, don't go looking. Don't open the door. Don't be like us. Because the bunker isn't empty. It never was.